The emergency alarms on the bridge of the Defiance blared as Commander Eliza Hart rushed to her command chair. Red warning lights flashed across the sleek control panels. She brushed her short brown hair from her eyes and took a deep breath. Status. Report, she ordered, her voice calm despite the chaos. Lieutenant Samantha Rogers looked up from her station, her face pale in the dim emergency lighting. Another colony ship has gone silent, Commander. The Novadawn. Same pattern as the others. All communications cut at once, then nothing. Eliza nodded grimly. This marked the 5th disappearance in 3 months. The pattern was becoming clear, but no less disturbing. Location? She asked. Outer rim of the Vega sector, near Mining Outpost 47. Richard Grant, her first officer, reported. His normally cheerful face was now set in hard lines of worry. They were carrying 300 colonists, mostly families. Eliza felt the weight of those lives on her shoulders. The United Earth Navy had assigned the Defiance to investigate these disappearances because it was their fastest ship with the best sensors. So far, they had found nothing but empty vessels drifting in space. When they found anything at all, set course for their last known coordinates, she ordered. Maximum speed. The ship hummed as its engines powered up. Through the main view screen, stars blurred as the Defiance jumped to faster-than-light travel. Eliza studied the data on her personal screen. Each missing ship showed the same pattern. A sudden power drain, communications failure, and then ... nothing. No distress signals. No escape pods launched. Commander, said Communications Officer Daniel Murphy from his station. He was the newest member of her crew, young and eager. I've been analyzing the communication blackouts. There's something odd about them. Eliza moved to his station. Show. Murphy pointed to a pattern of waves on his screen. Normal jammers create random interference. This pattern is structured, almost like a language. Whatever is blocking communications isn't just trying to silence them. It's replacing them with something else. Can you decode it? Eliza asked. Murphy shook his head. Not yet. It's unlike anything in our databases. 3 hours later, the Defiance dropped out of FTL at the Nova Dawn's last known position. The bridge crew fell silent at what they saw. The colony ship floated lifeless in space, its hull intact but dark. No running lights, no sign of power or life. It drifted slowly, rotating in the empty void. Life signs? Eliza asked quietly. Samantha checked her sensors. None detected, Commander. But the ship's structure is intact. No signs of weapon damage or hull breach. It's the same as the others, Richard said, his voice heavy. Like the ship was trained somehow. Eliza made her decision. Prepare a boarding team. I want to see this firsthand. 20 minutes later, Eliza led a team of 6 through the airless corridors of the Nova Dawn. Their helmet lights cut through the darkness, revealing an empty ship that looked as if everyone had simply vanished in the middle of their daily routines. A child's toy floated past her face. Half-eaten meals sat in the mess hall. But not a single body, not a drop of blood, no signs of struggle. It's like they were just taken, whispered Samantha, who had insisted on joining the boarding party. Not in the engine room, they found their first clue. The massive power core of the ship was intact, but completely drained. Not damaged, not destroyed, simply empty, as if something had sucked every bit of energy from it like a vampire. Commander, you need to see this, called Daniel from a nearby console. He had managed to restore minimal power to one computer terminal using their portable generator. On the screen was the last entry in the ship's log, recorded by the Nova Dawn's captain. Something's approaching. Massive ship, unlike anything I've seen. They're not responding to hails. Systems failing. It's her. The one they whisper about in the outer colonies. The Spectre. If anyone finds this, warn Earth. She's re. The log cut off abruptly. The specter? Richard asked. Some kind of alien? Eliza had heard the rumors. A ghost story told by Longhaul. Transport pilots and miners in the outer reaches. A mysterious ship that appeared from nowhere, took what it wanted, and vanished again. Some said it was piloted by a being so ancient and powerful that entire defense fleets had failed to even slow it down. Just stories, she said firmly. Focus on facts. Whatever did this left an energy trail. She pointed to Samantha's scanner, which was picking up faint readings leading away from the Nova Dawn. Should we follow it? Samantha asked. Eliza thought of the 300 missing colonists. If there was any chance they were still alive. Yes, at first, download everything we can from their computers. And plant a beacon so a recovery team can find the ship. Back aboard the Defiance, Eliza called a meeting of her senior officers. The ship was already following the faint energy trail, heading deeper into uncharted space. The trail leads beyond the boundary of mapped space, Samantha explained, showing a star chart with their projected course. We'll be the first UEN ship to go this far out. Intelligence has compiled everything we know about these Spectre rumors, Daniel added, bringing up a series of reports. The stories go back almost 50 years. A ship that appears without warning, disables all systems, takes what it wants, and disappears. Some accounts describe the pilot as female, with skin that glows like starlight. Others say she's just energy, with no physical form at all. And no one has ever captured an image of this ship? Eliza asked. No, Commander. Any ship that gets close enough never returns. Richard cleared his throat. Commander, I must formally advise against this pursuit. We're one ship, possibly tracking an enemy of unknown capabilities. Eliza looked at each of her officers in turn. Your concern is noted, but 300 people are missing from that colony ship, and 500 more from the previous attacks. If there's any chance they're still alive, we have to try. The briefing room fell silent. The trail is getting stronger, Samantha reported after checking her pad. Whatever we're following, we're gaining on it. Then we continue, Eliza said firmly. Prepare all systems for possible contact. And send one last message to command before we go out of range. As the Defiance continued its pursuit, Eliza stood alone on the observation deck, watching the unfamiliar. Stars slide past. Somewhere ahead was something that had taken hundreds of lives without leaving a trace. Something feared even in whispered stories, something she was now hunting. She only hoped she wasn't leading her crew to the same fate as the Nova Dawn. For 7 days, the Defiance followed the faint energy trail deeper into uncharted space. The crew grew tense as familiar star patterns vanished behind them. They were farther from Earth than any human ship had gone before. On the bridge, Eliza stared at the main view screen, which showed nothing but distant stars and empty space. The ship hummed quietly around her, the only sound besides the soft beeping of instruments. Any change in the trail? She asked Samantha, who hadn't left her sensor station for more than a few hours at a time since they began the pursuit. It's getting stronger, Commander, Samantha replied, her voice tired but excited. Whatever we're following, we're catching. Up to it. Daniel Murphy worked nearby, trying to decode the strange signal pattern they had discovered. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but he refused to give up. Anything new on that signal? Eliza asked him. Daniel shook his head. Not exactly, but I've noticed something interesting. The pattern changes slightly every few hours, like it's adapting, almost as if it's alive somehow. Richard approached with a fresh cup of coffee for Eliza. Commander, the crew is getting nervous. We've been in uncharted space for a week with no sign of this specter. Perhaps we should consider turning back. Eliza took the coffee gratefully. Not yet. Not while the trail is still fresh. A sudden alarm blared across the bridge. Samantha jumped up from her station. Commander! Massive energy spike directly ahead. The view screen flashed white, then stabilized to show an incredible sight. A ship had appeared before them, seemingly out of nowhere. It was enormous, at least 5 times the size of the Defiance. Its design was unlike anything they had ever seen. Not built but grown, with sections that seemed to pulse and breathe like a living thing. The hull shimmered with patterns of light that moved across its surface like ripples on water. All. Stop, Eliza ordered, her voice barely a whisper. Raise shields. Before anyone could react, the lights on the bridge dimmed. Consoles flickered and died. The main engines fell silent. Power failure across all systems, Richard shouted. Emergency generators not responding. Eliza felt a chill run down her spine. Just like the Nova Dawn and the other ships. Backup systems. Online, Samantha reported, as dim emergency lights bathed the bridge in red. Minimal power only. On the view screen, the alien vessel grew larger. They were being pulled toward it. It's some kind of tractor beam, Daniel said, checking the few instruments still working. We can't break free with our engines offline. Eliza made a quick decision. If we can't run, we'll try something they won't expect. We'll talk to them. Richard looked at her in shock. Commander, with respect, that's exactly what the Nova Dawn tried to do. We don't know that, Eliza countered, and we have no other options. Daniel, can you send a message? The young communications officer nodded. Emergency transmitters are still working. I can broadcast a simple signal. Send a universal greeting. Make it clear we come in peace. As Daniel worked, Eliza turned to Samantha. Is the shuttle bay still operational? Yes, Commander. The shuttles have independent power systems. Good. Prepare Shuttle 1 for immediate launch. I'm going to attempt direct contact. Richard stepped forward. Commander, I must strongly object. This is too dangerous. Eliza looked at him steadily. Noted, Officer Grant. But there are 300 colonists missing, possibly aboard that ship. This may be our only chance to find them. 20 minutes later, Eliza sat in the pilot's seat of Shuttle 1. Daniel had volunteered to join her as communications expert, and Samantha had insisted on coming to operate the sensors. The small craft detached from the disabled Defiance and moved slowly toward the massive alien ship. Keep broadcasting the greeting, Eliza instructed Daniel, and keep trying all frequencies. As they approached, they could see more details of the strange vessel. Parts of it seemed almost transparent, revealing complex structures inside that glowed with inner light. Other sections moved slightly, adjusting their shape as if the entire ship were breathing. It's beautiful, Samantha whispered, in a terrifying sort of way. Suddenly, a section of the hull before them shifted, opening like a flower to reveal an entrance just large enough for their shuttle. It's inviting us in, Daniel said, his voice a mix of fear and wonder. Eliza hesitated only briefly. Take us in slowly. The shuttle passed through the opening into a vast chamber bathed in soft blue light. The walls pulsed gently, and the air shimmered with particles that glowed like tiny stars. The shuttle settled onto a surface that yielded slightly under its weight, then firmed up to hold it secure. Atmosphere scan? Eliza asked. Samantha checked her instruments. Breathable, surprisingly. Oxygen, nitrogen, trace elements. Temperature. Comfortable for humans. It's almost as if it was prepared for us. Eliza finished. They donned light-breathing masks as a precaution and stepped out of the shuttle. The floor beneath them felt slightly springy, almost organic. The walls continued to pulse with slow, rhythmic movements. It feels alive, Daniel said quietly. They had taken only a few steps when a pathway formed before them, the floor glowing to mark a trail deeper into the ship. I think we're being invited to follow, Samantha said. They walked for what seemed like miles through corridors that formed as they approached and sealed behind them after they passed. Finally, they entered a vast circular chamber. In the center floated a being unlike anything they had ever seen. She, for somehow they all knew instinctively it was female, hovered several feet above the floor. Her form was vaguely humanoid, but constantly shifting, as if unable to decide on a final shape. Her skin glowed with the same patterns of light they had seen on the ship's hull. Where her eyes should be were pools of swirling energy that seemed to look through them rather than at them. Daniel stepped forward slowly, hands raised to show he carried no weapons. We come in peace, he said clearly. We are from Earth. We're looking for missing people from our ships. The being made no sound, but the air around them vibrated. Images suddenly appeared all around the chamber, planets burning, civilizations falling, and finally, a single ship fleeing through the darkness of space. I think she's showing us her story, Samantha whispered. More images appeared, the being's ship encountering others, taking their energy, sometimes taking their crews. She's been alone, Daniel said softly, for a very long time. The being drifted closer to them. The air crackled with energy. When she finally spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, resonating in their minds rather than their ears. All who find me seek to destroy me, the voice said. As they destroyed my world, why should you be different? Eliza stepped forward, placing herself between the glowing being and her crew members. We are not here to destroy you, she said firmly. We came looking for our missing people. The being's form rippled, colors shifting from blue to a deep purple. More images flashed around them, human ships, the moments of their capture, and then rows of transparent chambers containing sleeping humans. They live, the being's voice echoed in their minds. I study them, learn if they are a threat. Daniel moved slowly to stand beside Eliza. Those are our people. They have families waiting for them. Children, parents, loved ones who miss them. The being tilted her head, the concept seemingly strange to her. Family. This word has no meaning to me. I am the last. There are no others like me, Samantha gasped softly. You're the last of your species? New images appeared, showing a beautiful world with soaring crystal cities. Then came massive ships, different from the being's vessel, raining destruction from the sky. The cities fell. The oceans boiled. In the end, only one ship escaped, carrying the being they now faced. I am all that remains, she said. For 1,000 of your years, I have wandered alone. Daniel looked at the being with compassion in his eyes. I'm sorry for what happened to your world, but taking our people won't bring yours back. The being moved closer to Daniel, studying him with her swirling energy eyes. You are different from the others I have encountered. Most attack. Try to destroy me, fear me. We're afraid, Daniel admitted. But we're curious too. We want to understand. Back on the Defiance, Richard paced the bridge nervously. It had been 6 hours since the shuttle entered the alien vessel, and there had been no communication from the commander or her team. Any change in ship status? He asked the skeleton crew manning the emergency stations. No, sir, replied navigation. Officer Ben Kelly. All main systems remain offline. Life support is stable on emergency power, but that's about it. Richard stared at the view screen, where the massive alien ship filled their view. Keep trying to reach the shuttle, and prepare a second shuttle for launch. If we don't hear from them in 1 hour, I'm going in after them. Inside the alien vessel, Eliza, Daniel, and Samantha had been shown to a separate chamber where they could rest. The room had somehow formed furniture that approximated human beds and chairs, though they were slightly wrong in proportion and made of the same slightly yielding material as the rest of the ship. "She's been studying us for some time," Samantha said quietly. "Those missing ships, the crews. She's been learning about humans." Eliza nodded. "The question is why? What does she want from us?" Daniel sat on one of the strange chairs, deep in thought. "She's alone, has been for centuries. Maybe she just wants connection." "Connection doesn't explain draining our ships of power and taking the crews," Eliza countered. "Actually, it might," Samantha said, checking readings on her handheld scanner. "I've been analyzing the energy patterns in this ship. It seems to run on some form of emotional energy. The more fear or pain it detects, the more power it generates." Daniel looked up sharply. "So she attacks ships, causes fear, and harvests that energy to power her vessel." "It's just a theory, but it fits the data," Samantha replied. Eliza stood. "Up, we need to find the missing colonists. If they're here, we need to see them for ourselves." When they left their chamber, they found the being waiting for them in the corridor. Without words, she led them through the shifting passages of the ship until they reached an enormous hall filled with hundreds of transparent pods. Inside each pod floated a human, seemingly asleep. "Our people," Eliza whispered, placing her hand on the nearest pod. Inside was a young woman, her expression peaceful. "Are they aware? Are they suffering?" "They sleep," the being replied in their minds. "They dream. I study their dreams to understand humans." Daniel walked slowly between the rows of pods. "This is wrong. You can't just take people because you're curious about them." The being's form darkened. "You would destroy me if given the chance. All species eventually turn on those they fear. I must know my enemies." "We don't have to be enemies," Daniel said gently. "Humans can be friends, allies." The concept seemed to confuse the being. Her form flickered rapidly between shapes. "Show me this." "Friendship," she demanded. Daniel thought for a moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small music player he carried. "This is something humans create. We call it music." He pressed play, and the soft notes of a classical piano piece filled the air around them. The being moved closer, her form pulsing in time with the melody. "This pattern, it creates feelings, but not fear," she said, sounding puzzled. "Music is how we express emotions," Daniel explained. "Joy, sadness, hope, love, it connects us to each other." The being absorbed this information, her form gradually shifting to a softer blue color. "I have existed on fear for so long." "It is efficient, powerful, but lonely," Daniel said quietly. The being was silent for a long moment. Then, to their surprise, the lights throughout the ship brightened slightly. "Your ship requires energy to function," she stated. "I will restore some power." Aboard the Defiance, the bridge suddenly lit up as systems came back online. "Power returning." Ben called out. "Engines at 30%, communications restored." Richard immediately opened a channel. "Commander Hart, do you read me?" Eliza's voice came through clearly. "We read you, Officer Grant. We're fine. We've made contact with the ... We're ready to mount a rescue operation," Richard said, relief evident in his voice. "Hold position," Eliza ordered. "The situation is complex. The missing colonists are here, alive but in some kind of stasis. We're negotiating." Back in the pod chamber, Daniel had continued to play different pieces of music for the being. With each new melody, her form shifted colors and patterns, experiencing human emotions in perhaps the purest way possible. "Your species creates beauty," she finally said. "This is unexpected." Daniel smiled. "We create many things. Music, art, stories. Would you like to hear a story?" The being moved closer, Yes. As Daniel began to tell a simple story from his childhood, Samantha whispered to Eliza, "The energy readings in the ship are changing. Before, they were chaotic, unstable. Now they're harmonizing somehow." Eliza watched as the being seemed to relax in Daniel's presence, the harsh edges of her form softening. "Maybe there's hope after all," Eliza said quietly. "For our people." And for her, the being suddenly turned to them. "I have been called many things by those who fear me. The Spectre, the Void Hunter. But I had a name once, before my world died." "What was your name?" Daniel asked gently. "It cannot be pronounced." "In your language," she replied. "But in your terms, it would mean something like light from distant stars." Daniel smiled. "Then we'll call you Stella." It means star in an old Earth language. The newly named Stella's form brightened. "Stella," she repeated, the word echoing strangely in their minds. "I have not had a name spoken by another in 1,000 years." For the first time since they had encountered her, Stella seemed not fearsome, but vulnerable. A being who had survived unimaginable loss and loneliness. Daniel looked at the pods containing the sleeping humans, then back at Stella. "Will you release our people now?" Stella's form darkened again. "If I release them, I will be alone again. And without their energy, my ship will eventually fail." "There might be another way," Daniel said, an idea forming in his mind. "A way for you to have what you need without taking it by force." Stella listened carefully as Daniel explained his idea. Her form shifted through shades of blue and purple as she considered his words. "You suggest I could power my ship with positive emotions?" she asked, her voice echoing in their minds. "Joy instead of fear?" Daniel nodded. "From what Samantha has observed, your ship responds to emotional energy. Fear and pain might be powerful, but they're not the only strong emotions humans feel." Samantha stepped forward with her scanner. "The readings I got when you experienced music were different, but just as strong as the fear patterns. Maybe even stronger in some ways." Eliza watched the exchange with cautious hope. "If this works, would you release our people?" Stella's form pulsed slowly. "I have survived this long by being careful. I will release some as a test. If Daniel's theory proves true, I will consider releasing the others." "That's fair, Eliza." "Agreed. We'll start with the crew of the Nova Dawn." Stella led them to a control area where the walls were covered with flowing symbols. She touched several of them, and in the pod chamber, 10 of the containers began to glow brighter. "These will awaken first," she said. "The process takes time." While they waited, Richard contacted them from the Defiance with troubling news. "Commander, long-range sensors are picking up multiple ships heading this way." His voice crackled through Eliza's communicator. "They're moving fast, and they're not responding to hails." Eliza frowned. "Earth ships? How did they find us so quickly?" "Not Earth ships," Richard replied, his voice tense. "Their design doesn't match anything in our database. But they're definitely heading straight for us." Stella's form suddenly flared bright red. She moved to a different section of the control area and touched more symbols. A large viewing screen formed on the wall, showing distant points of light moving rapidly toward them. "The Void Heralds," she said, her mental voice filled with dread. "They have found me again." "Void Heralds?" Eliza asked. "Who are they?" "New." Images flashed around them. The same massive ships that had destroyed Stella's homeworld, moving from system to system, wiping out advanced civilizations. "They are the ones who killed my people," Stella explained. "They consider themselves the only worthy species in the galaxy. All others are either threats to be eliminated or resources to be harvested." Daniel looked at the approaching ships with growing concern. "How long do we have?" "Hours, perhaps," Stella replied. "My ship is faster. We could flee." Eliza shook her head firmly. "Not without our people." And if these void heralds are as dangerous as you say, Earth needs to be warned. Stella's form darkened. Your warning will come too late. The heralds have likely already found your colonies. That is their way. They send scouts first, then attack in force once they have measured a species' strength. A chill ran through Eliza. The disappearances in the outer colonies. They weren't all you, were they? No, Stella admitted. I investigated some myself. Found only debris. I assumed it was other species like yours, expanding into space. In the pod chamber, the first of the awakened colonists was beginning to stir. A middle-aged man with graying hair sat up slowly, looking around in confusion. Where am I? He asked when he saw Eliza's uniform. What happened to our ship? You're safe now, Eliza assured him. We're working on getting everyone home. As more colonists awakened, Daniel pulled Samantha and Eliza aside. If the Void Heralds are coming, we need to move quickly. Not just to escape, but to find a way to fight back. Samantha nodded. From what Stella has shown us, Earth technology is no match for them. But Stella's ship might be, Daniel suggested. She's evaded them for 1,000 years. They returned to the control area, where Stella was monitoring the approaching herald. Ships. The newly awakened colonists had been moved to a holding area where they were being given food and water. Stella, Daniel said, you've studied humans. You've seen our dreams, our thoughts. Do you believe we're like the heralds? Would we destroy you if we had the chance? Stella was silent for a long moment. I no longer believe that, she finally admitted. You had opportunities to attack. Instead, you offered music and stories. Then help us, Daniel urged. Your ship, your technology, it's our only chance against the heralds. Stella's form rippled with uncertainty. I have hidden. For centuries, never confronted them directly. You won't be alone this time, Daniel said softly. And then, without warning, he did something that changed everything. He reached out and touched her. The moment his hand made contact with her luminescent form, a surge of energy pulsed throughout the ship. Lights brightened everywhere. Dormant systems hummed to life. In the distance, they could hear the colonists gasping in surprise. Daniel felt a warm, tingling sensation, but no pain. Stella's form had solidified slightly at his touch, becoming less energy and more matter. What? What is this? Stella's voice in their minds was filled with wonder. Connection, Daniel said simply. Real connection. Samantha was frantically checking her scanner. The energy readings are off the charts. But it's stable now, not chaotic like before. Stella slowly pulled away from Daniel's touch, her form now glowing a gentle gold color. In all my existence, no one has ever willingly touched me before. That's what humans do, Daniel explained. When we trust someone, when we want to show we care, we reach out. For the first time, they heard something like emotion in Stella's mental voice. I have been alone so long. I forgot what it was to be ... connected. Eliza watched this exchange with amazement and turned to practical matters. Can your ship defend against the heralds? Stella seemed to gather herself. Yes, I have weapon systems I have never used. Technology my people developed, but considered too dangerous. I kept them, in case the heralds ever found me again. Will you use them now? Not just for yourself, but for us too? Eliza asked. Stella's form pulsed with new determination. Yes, but I will need help. The systems require multiple operators. We can help, Daniel offered immediately. Tell us what to do. Over the next hour, Stella released all the remaining colonists from stasis. She explained to Eliza and Daniel that her ship contained a weapon that could potentially disable the herald vessels, disrupting the unique frequency they used to coordinate their attacks. But there is risk, she warned. To use this weapon, I must connect deeply with my ship's systems. I may lose myself in the process. Daniel looked at her with concern. What do you mean, lose yourself? My consciousness may merge completely with the ship, Stella explained. I might cease to exist as an individual. There has to be another way, Daniel insisted. Stella's form dimmed slightly. There is no time to find one. The heralds will be here soon. On the bridge of the Defiance, Richard watched as the alien ships grew closer on their sensors. The colonists had been transferred from Stella's ship to the Defiance, which now had partial power restored. All civilians are aboard, sir, Ben reported. But we're still only at 40% power, not enough to outrun those ships. Richard nodded grimly. Then we stand and fight alongside her. Prepare all weapons systems. Back on Stella's ship, Daniel stood with her in the control center. Eliza and Samantha had returned to the Defiance to coordinate their defense. Are you sure about this? Daniel asked Stella, his voice heavy with concern. Stella's form brightened as she looked at him. For 1,000 years, I existed only to survive. Today, I have a reason to do more than just survive. Daniel reached out and touched her form again, feeling the now familiar surge of energy. Then let's give the heralds something they won't forget. The Void Herald ships emerged from light speed, their dark forms blotting out the stars behind them. There were 7 of them, each twice the size of Stella's vessel. They moved in perfect formation, surrounding Stella's ship and the Defiance. On the bridge of the Defiance, Eliza watched the tactical display with growing concern. The colonists were huddled in the cargo bay, frightened but alive. If they couldn't stop these heralds, all of them would be lost. Still no response to our hails. Richard reported. Keep trying, Eliza ordered. All weapons ready. Target the lead ship. The Defiance's weapons seemed pitiful against the massive herald vessels, but they would fight with everything they had. Inside Stella's ship, Daniel stood in the main control chamber. The walls had transformed into viewing screens, showing the herald vessels surrounding them. Stella's form had spread throughout the chamber, tendrils of light connecting to various systems. They are sending a message, Stella's voice echoed around him. They say I am the last impurity to be cleansed from this galaxy. After me, they will purify the human worlds. Can they detect the colonists on the Defiance? Daniel asked. Yes. They know your ship is there. They will destroy it after they finish with me. Daniel's jaw tightened. Not if we stop them first. Are your weapons ready? Stella's form pulsed. Almost. I must connect more deeply with my ship's systems. The main lights dimmed as more energy flowed into Stella's form. The walls of the chamber began to pulse in rhythm with her light. Daniel, her voice was softer now, more intimate. If this fails, if I am lost, I want you to know that you have given me a gift greater than survival. What's that? He asked. Purpose. Connection. For the first time since my world died, I am not alone. Before Daniel could respond, the lead herald ship fired. A beam of dark energy struck Stella's ship, causing it to shudder violently. Daniel was thrown to the floor. Stella, he called out, scrambling to his feet. Are you all right? Her voice came weaker than before. Their weapons are designed to disrupt my ship's energy patterns. I must act now. Her form began to dissolve, spreading throughout the ship until the walls themselves glowed with her essence. The control panel before Daniel lit up with symbols he didn't understand. Place your hands here, Stella's voice instructed. I need your emotional energy to complete the circuit. Daniel placed his hands on the glowing panel. Immediately, he felt a connection forming, not just with the ship, but with Stella herself. Her thoughts, her memories, her fears, all flowed into his mind, and his flowed into hers. On the Defiance, Eliza watched as Stella's ship began to glow brighter and brighter, until it was painful to look at directly. "What's happening?" she asked Samantha, who was monitoring the energy readings. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," Samantha replied in awe. The energy patterns are synchronizing, not just within her ship, but reaching out toward the Herald vessels. The lead Herald ship fired again, but this time the beam was absorbed into Stella's glowing hull without effect. Then, to their amazement, Stella's ship began to emit pulses of golden light that spread outward like ripples in a pond. When the pulses reached the Herald ships, they seemed to freeze in place. Their weapons powered down. Their engines stalled. "It's working," Samantha exclaimed. "Whatever they're doing, it's disabling the Heralds." Inside Stella's ship, Daniel struggled to maintain the connection. The flood of memories and emotions was overwhelming. He saw Stella's world before its destruction, a beautiful place of crystal spires and singing oceans. He felt her centuries of loneliness, her fear, her desperate need to survive Dot, and Stella experienced humanity through Daniel, the joy of family, the comfort of friendship, the power of music and stories. She felt what it meant to be part of something larger than yourself, to care for others more than your own survival. "We're doing it, Stella," Daniel gasped. "The Heralds are immobilized." Her voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "This is only temporary. To truly stop them, I must do more." Daniel felt her presence beginning to fade from his mind. "Stella, wait. Don't lose yourself." "I'm not losing myself," her voice replied gently. "I'm finding a new way to be." A golden light grew more intense. Daniel watched in amazement as tendrils of energy extended from Stella's ship, connecting to each of the Herald vessels. As the connections formed, the Herald ships began to shudder and spark. On the Defiance, they watched as strange patterns of light spread across the Herald. Ships' hulls. "What's she doing to them?" Richard asked. Samantha studied her readings. "She's not destroying them. She's changing them somehow, rewriting their control systems." After several tense minutes, the light began to fade. The Herald ships remained in place, but their threatening posture had changed. They now seemed dormant, waiting. Inside Stella's control chamber, Daniel fell to his knees as the connection broke. The room darkened, and for a terrible moment, he thought Stella was gone. "Stella?" he called out desperately. "Are you there?" A small point of light formed before him, gradually taking shape until it resembled the form he had come to know. But it was weaker, less defined. "I am here," her voice came softly, but changed. "What did you do, the Heralds?" Daniel asked. "I made them feel," Stella explained. "For the first time in their existence, they experienced the emotions we shared. Joy, sorrow, hope, love. Their minds were linked only by cold logic before. Now they must process feelings they have never known. Will that stop them? For now, they have retreated into themselves to understand these new experiences. It may take them years to process what they now feel." Daniel reached out toward her diminished form. "And you? What happens to you now?" "Much of my energy was used in the connection. I will recover, but slowly. I am tired, Daniel. More tired than I have been in centuries." A communication from the Defiance came through. "Daniel, this is Commander Hart. Is everything all right in there?" "We're okay," he replied. "Stella stopped the Heralds, but she's weakened. We need to protect her until she recovers." 2 days later, a small fleet of Earth ships arrived, responding to the Defiance's distress call. They found the Herald ships still dormant, the Defiance keeping watch over them, and Stella's ship slowly pulsing with rebuilding energy. In the briefing room of the Earth flagship, Eliza explained everything that had happened. Admiral William Carter listened with growing amazement. "So this alien being, who we thought was our enemy, saved us from a much greater threat?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Eliza confirmed. And she did it by sharing human emotions with them. Our connection was our greatest weapon. The Admiral looked thoughtful. And where is this ... Stella now? Her ship is regenerating, Daniel explained. He had joined the briefing as the person who best understood Stella. She used most of her energy to stop the Heralds. I've been helping her recover by sharing more human experiences with her. Music, stories, art. You seem quite attached to this alien, the Admiral observed. Daniel met his gaze steadily. She risked everything for us, sir. She was alone for 1,000 years, feared by everyone she encountered. Until someone reached out to her, the Admiral nodded slowly. I'll need to report this to Earth Command. They'll want to establish formal contact with her once she's recovered. After the briefing, Daniel returned to Stella's ship. Her form was stronger now, more defined, glowing with gentle blue light. The Earth ships have arrived, he told her. They want to establish diplomatic relations with you. Stella's form brightened slightly. Diplomatic relations. An interesting concept. Will you help me understand what this means? Daniel smiled. Of course. I'll help you with anything you need. And will you ... stay? For a while at least? There was a note of vulnerability in her mental voice that hadn't been there before. Daniel reached out and gently touched her luminescent form, feeling the now familiar warmth flow between them. As long as you want me to, he promised. You're not alone anymore, Stella, and you never will be again. Her light pulsed in what he had come to recognize as happiness. Around them, her ship hummed with new energy, not the energy of fear or loneliness, but of connection and hope. She had been feared and untouchable for centuries, until a human reached out and changed everything.